Ohio. You probably think you know it. Flat, corn, maybe a river. But here's the thing. Ohio has a river that caught fire. A lake that behaves like a bathtub on a moving train. An underground city 2,000 feet below a major American metropolis. An astronomical observatory built 2,000 years ago directly on top of a meteor impact crater. And a stretch of pavement that started the most powerful road network in human history. This isn't your middle school geography class. These are 50 mind-blowing facts about Ohio that will completely reframe how you see the American interior. Let's start with the water. Facts 1 to 6. The lake and the land. Fact 1. Lake Erie is the shallowest of the Great Lakes, averaging just 62 feet deep. But shallow doesn't mean weak. That shallowness is precisely why it freezes faster, warms faster, and generates storms more violent than lakes 3 times its size. Shallow means volatile. Erie is proof. Fact 2. Ohio has islands. Real ones. South Bass Island, Kelly's Island, Middle Bass. Sitting in western Lake Erie, mostly invisible to anyone without a boat. Some are year-round communities. Some have wineries. One carries one of the most dramatic geological scars on this continent. Fact 3. Kelly's Island's glacial grooves are exactly that. A glacier the size of a continent dragged itself across this limestone island between 18,000 and 20,000 years ago and left furrows up to 35 feet wide and 400 feet long cut directly into bedrock. These aren't erosion marks, they're wounds. You can walk up to them and put your hands inside them. Fact 4. Cedar Point, yes, the amusement park, is a moving landform. A sandspit built entirely from sediment deposited by Lake Erie's currents, still actively changing shape. The roller coasters are sitting on geology in motion. Fact 5. Lake Erie does something called a seiche. Sustained wind pushes water to one end of the lake, raising levels by up to 15 feet on one shore while the opposite end drops. Then the wind stops, and it sloshes back. Like a tilted bathtub, that slosh can send unexpected floods into harbors with zero warning. Fact 6. The Marblehead Lighthouse on Erie's south shore is the oldest lighthouse in continuous operation on all 5 Great Lakes. Active since 1822. Still necessary. Facts 7 to 13. Fire, ice, and invisible lines. Fact 7. The Cuyahoga River caught fire 13 times. The most famous was 1969. Oil slicks and industrial waste ignited on the surface and burned for 30 minutes. The images were so alarming they became the direct catalyst for the Clean Water Act of 1972. A river on fire changed federal law. But the 1969 fire wasn't even the worst one. The 1952 fire caused over $1 million in damage. The 1912 fire killed 5 people. 13 fires. Nearly a century. That's not carelessness. That's geography making something inevitable. The Cuyahoga's 100-mile loop through industrial Ohio turned it into a drain for an entire corridor. The landscape set the trap. Industry just walked into it. Fact 8. An invisible continental divide runs through Akron, Ohio. On one side, water drains north into Lake Erie and eventually into the Atlantic. On the other, it drains south into the Ohio River and eventually into the Gulf of Mexico. 2 global drainage systems. 1 city. Most residents have never heard this. Fact 9. There's an ancient ghost river beneath Ohio. The Taze River was a massive pre-glacial drainage system running through central Ohio, buried entirely by glaciers. The river is gone. Its geography isn't. Fact 10. The Cuyahoga River is technically 2 rivers in one. Its headwaters start just miles from Lake Erie, then immediately turn south, run 100 miles inland, then loop back north to empty into the same lake they started from. That's not just geography, that's geological irony. Fact 11. Hocking Hills is carved from Blackhand sandstone, a formation that exists in only one specific corridor of southeastern Ohio. The caves, gorges, and waterfalls weren't created by rivers. They were created by freeze-thaw cycles fracturing rock from the inside out over millions of years. The landscape looks ancient, because it is. Fact 12. The hills along the Ohio River produce a morning mist so thick they've earned the nickname the Little Smokies. This is where Ohio's flat reputation collapses entirely. Deeply forested, dramatically hilly. Nothing like the Ohio most people picture. Fact 13. The Hocking River was rerouted, not by engineers, but by glaciers. The ice disrupted Ohio's drainage so completely that rivers were forced to cut entirely new channels through solid bedrock. What you're looking at today isn't the original landscape. It's the post-glacial rewrite. Facts 14 to 21. Underground, Ohio. Fact 14. Cincinnati sits on a fossil vault. The bedrock beneath the city is Ordovician limestone, 450 million years old, packed with marine fossils. Trilobites, brachiopods, ancient cephalopods. Cincinnati was once at the bottom of a shallow tropical sea. When construction crews dig downtown foundations, they find ocean creatures in the middle of the American Midwest. Fact 15. Cleveland has an underground city of salt. 2,000 feet below Lake Erie, the Cargill salt mine contains 100 miles of tunnels, roads, traffic signs, its own underground lake. The people of Cleveland drive above it daily and have no idea it exists. Fact 16. The Great Miami River feeds a hidden superaquifer beneath the Miami Valley, one of the most productive groundwater systems in the eastern United States. Dayton draws most of its water from it. The same glaciers that flattened the surface 15,000 years ago preserved the water supply. Fact 17. Grand Lake St. Mary's was, at its creation in the 1840s, the largest man-made lake in the world. Not built for recreation, built to feed the Miami-Erie Canal system. Designed to keep water levels high enough for cargo boats during dry seasons. Built entirely by hand, with shovels, in the 1840s. Fact 18. Ohio has caverns. Ohio caverns feature crystalline white calcite against deep red iron oxide, some of the most colorful cave formations in the eastern U.S. Ohio's flat exterior hides a fractured, hollow interior. Fact 19. The 1913 Dayton flood killed over 360 people and swept entire city blocks away. The response didn't build levees, they built retarding basins. 5 massive earthen dams designed to hold floodwater and release it slowly. They permanently reshaped the rivers. No flood of that magnitude has occurred since. Geography was weaponized against itself. Fact 20. John Roebling, the engineer who designed the Brooklyn Bridge, built his prototype across the Ohio River at Cincinnati in 1866. The longest suspension bridge in the world at the time. Brooklyn came after. Ohio came first. Fact 21. The Scioto and Olentangy rivers converge at what is now Columbus. In 1812, commissioners selected that exact site for Ohio's capital specifically because of its river geography, central location, water access, naturally defensible terrain. The geography chose the capital. The politicians just signed off. Facts 22 to 28. Ancient ground. Fact 22. Serpent Mound is a quarter-mile-long effigy mound built in the shape of a serpent on a ridge in southern Ohio. Most people know that part. Here's what they don't. Serpent Mound sits directly on top of a meteor impact crater. The ground beneath it is shattered rock from a cosmic collision over 300 million years ago. Whoever built this mound didn't just choose a hill, they chose a geological anomaly. Fact 23. And Serpent Mound isn't alone. Ohio has multiple confirmed impact structures. The ancient people who built Ohio's earthworks consistently chose geologically significant sites, craters, confluence points, fault lines. They weren't selecting randomly. They were reading the land with a precision we're still catching up to. Fact 24. The Hopewell ceremonial earthworks at Newark, Ohio, were built 2,000 years ago. They align with the 18.6-year lunar cycle with an accuracy that shouldn't be achievable without centuries of precise astronomical observation. They've been added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. This is not primitive engineering. This is sophisticated science with different tools. Fact 25. The Newark earthworks were so large that the entire octagonal enclosure could contain 4 Roman colosseums. These were massive public works. We later built a golf course through part of them. That's its own kind of fact. Fact 26. The Lake Erie snowbelt is not a metaphor. Cold air crossing the unfrozen lake dumps enormous moisture on northeastern Ohio. Cities like Chardon receive over 100 inches of snow per year. A few miles further inland, dramatically less. The lake draws the line, and the line doesn't negotiate. Fact 27. The Appalachian glacial line cuts diagonally across Ohio from northeast to southwest. North and west, flat, glacially scoured farmland rich with glacial till. South and east, rugged, unglaciated, deeply carved hill country. 2 completely different Ohios, divided by a line drawn by ice. You can identify exactly where you crossed it by watching the terrain change through a car window. Fact 28. The oak openings near Toledo are a geographic anomaly inside a state full of them. Sand dunes, savannas, oak barrens, in the middle of Midwest agricultural flatlands. Remnants of ancient lakeshore from when Lake Erie was significantly larger. The dunes are real, the lake just retreated. Facts 29 to 35, where America collides. Fact 29. Ohio has 2 distinct climate personalities, split almost precisely in half. Western Ohio, continental, dry. Eastern Ohio, heavier precipitation, lake-influenced cloud cover. Cross the state, and you cross a genuine climatic boundary. Fact 30. Holmes County is home to the largest Amish settlement in the world. And that's a geographic fact as much as a cultural one. The rolling terrain provided fertile valleys, natural isolation, and limited industrial infrastructure. Geography preserved a way of life. Fact 31. The Ohio River feeds the Mississippi. The Mississippi reaches the Gulf. Every drop of rain falling on Columbus or Cleveland is moving, slowly, inevitably, toward the Gulf of Mexico. Ohio sits at the headwaters of the continental interior. Fact 32. Cleveland's Emerald Necklace follows the Cuyahoga River Valley almost exactly, a geographic corridor that preserved the most ecologically complex terrain in the metro area from urban development. The geography shaped the parks. The parks preserved the geography. Fact 33. Campbell Hill, Ohio's highest point, stands at 1,549 feet above sea level. Modest by any standard. But Ohio's modest topography is strategic. The glacial flattening created the richest agricultural soils in the eastern half of the continent. Ohio traded drama for productivity and took the better deal. Fact 34. The Hopewell and Adena cultures that built Ohio's earthworks had trade networks stretching from the Gulf Coast to the Rocky Mountains, confirmed by artifacts found in the mounds. 2,000 years ago, Ohio was one of the most connected places in North America. Fact 35. Ohio is where 3 Americas collide: the industrial Northeast, the agricultural Midwest, the Appalachian South. No other state sits at the exact intersection of all 3 systems, geographically, climatically, or culturally. Everything converged here. It wasn't an accident, and we haven't even gotten to the people Ohio produced. Facts 36 to 50. Ohio built America. Fact 36. Ohio's name comes from a Seneca word meaning great river, not the state, the river. When European settlers asked what to call this place, the Seneca pointed at the water. Ohio was named for geography before it had borders, a capital, or a flag. The land named itself. Fact 37. 7 U.S. presidents were born in Ohio, more than any state except Virginia. Ohio isn't just a swing state, it's a presidential factory. The same geographic crossroads that made it a continental hub made it a political one. Fact 38. Neil Armstrong was born in Wapakoneta, Ohio, less than 70 miles from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The first man to walk on the moon grew up watching experimental aircraft from a flat Midwest field. The geography set the trajectory. Fact 39. The Wright brothers were from Dayton. The first powered aircraft flight happened in North Carolina, but the men who figured it out did it in an Ohio bicycle shop. Congress officially declared Ohio the birthplace of aviation. Dayton didn't just produce flight. Dayton produced the logic that made flight possible. Fact 40. NASA has documented 25 astronauts from Ohio, one state, 25 people who left the atmosphere. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. Fact 41. Thomas Edison was born in Milan, Ohio. The phonograph, the motion picture camera, the first commercially viable incandescent light bulb, the man who lit up the modern world grew up on the banks of the Huron River. Ohio didn't just produce inventors, it produced the inventor every other inventor is measured against. Fact 42. The traffic light was invented in Cleveland. Garrett Morgan, a black inventor who also invented an early gas mask, patented the three-position traffic signal in 1923. Two devices that have collectively saved millions of lives, both from the same Ohio city that set its own river on fire. Cleveland contains multitudes. Fact 43. The National Football League was founded in Canton, Ohio in 1920, inside a Hupmobile car dealership. The most valuable sports league on earth wasn't born in New York or Los Angeles. It was incorporated in a mid-sized Ohio city. Canton is also home to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The sport began where it's remembered. Fact 44. Akron became the rubber capital of the world, and geography made it inevitable. The Ohio and Erie Canal ran directly through the city. Goodyear, Goodrich, Firestone. Within decades, Akron produced more rubber than anywhere on Earth. Geography made the canal made the industry, the tires made the 20th century. Fact 45. The Cincinnati Reds, founded in 1869, were the first fully professional baseball team in the United States. Not semi-pro, fully salaried. They proved people would pay to watch baseball played at a professional level. The entire American sports industry starts with a decision made in Cincinnati. Ohio made baseball viable. Fact 46. John Glenn, the first American to orbit Earth, was born in New Concord, Ohio. He orbited the planet 3 times in 1962. He returned to space in 1998 at age 77, still the oldest human being ever to fly in space. Ohio produced the first man to orbit Earth. The same man went back at 77. Geography doesn't cap ambition. Fact 47. The first concrete street in America was poured in Bellefontaine, Ohio in 1891. It still exists. Every interstate highway, every suburban cul-de-sac, every drive-through and strip mall and asphalt artery of the American road network, it all has a starting point. 134 years old. In a small Ohio city, most people have never visited. Fact 48. Xenia, Ohio has been struck by major tornadoes with such frequency that atmospheric scientists use it as a case study in terrain-driven storm geography. In 1974, during the super outbreak, the largest tornado event in recorded history, a single tornado killed 34 people in Xenia alone. The same city was struck again in 2000. The terrain funnels the storms. The geography of the land is the danger. Fact 49. Ohio's flag is the only non-rectangular state flag in the United States. It is a burgee, a pennant shape with a swallowtail cut out. Every other state chose a rectangle. Ohio chose geometry. For a state that looks ordinary on the map, it couldn't even commit to a standard shape. Fact 50. Ohio sits at the convergence of 3 major American railroad corridors, the same geographic reality that made it the industrial backbone of the 19th century, the flat terrain that glaciers created, the river systems that ancient cultures mapped, the continental crossroads that built 7 presidents, 25 astronauts, the first baseball team, the first concrete road, the first traffic light, and the machines that flew. Ohio doesn't produce history in spite of its geography. It produces history because of it. The land was always the mechanism. We just weren't paying attention. 50 facts. Ice sheets that buried entire rivers. A city built above 100 miles of salt tunnels. A golf course on a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The first road. The first flight. The first moon landing. All of it from the same flat, forgettable-looking square of the American interior. None of this fits the Ohio you were taught to ignore. And that's exactly how the most interesting geography always works. It hides in plain sight, waiting for someone to look closer. The bigger map. Here's the thing about Ohio. Most people look at it and see average, flat, forgettable. But average is just what you see from the highway. Beneath Ohio is a ghost river that glaciers buried. Inside it is a salt city 2,000 feet underground. Above it are ancient earthworks aligned to the moon. At its edges is a lake that behaves like a weapon. Running through the middle of it is an invisible line, a continental divide that splits rainfall toward two different oceans. And embedded in its culture is a factory that has produced more astronauts, more presidents, and more world-changing inventions than any geography this unremarkable should ever be able to explain. Ohio isn't average. Ohio is where everything converges, and that's the bigger map. Let me know in the comments below which fact you find most interesting. Subscribe. The next state is more unsettling than you think.